Hey everybody, welcome back. This video is going to be focusing on laying out and painting on the stripes of my 69 Camaro Z28. And I'm going to start off here. I always start at the cowl cover with fine line tape, because the cowl cover has the reveal for the grill up there at the cowl, which establishes the stripes that go down the hood. And so I'm starting off the video showing you how I use the fine line tape and how I get it to curve around the the curves of the reveal there. It's pretty easy to use. You just kind of work it around in the circle, and it bends pretty easily. So, and then I use a small little metal ruler to measure out the distances of the stripes, which I'll show you my source for that here in a minute. But again, I'm showing you how easy it is to use the fine line tape, and you really need to use the fine line tape to get a nice crisp edge on the stripe. So I'm going to speed this up a little bit to show you the overall process, and then I'll jump to the source for measuring the distances for the stripe, pinstripe. So I'm using 1/4 inch fine line tape here, and the dimensions for the pinstripe are 1/4 of an inch. Some people say that it's I believe it's, I can't remember now, the 9/16 or something like that. But I just go ahead and measure the 1/4 inch space between the stripe and the pinstripe, and then I use the 1/4 inch fine line tape. Then once fine line tape is on there, I put a row of masking tape around, to where then we'll connect the paper later on when we start to paint. And again, that'll come up here later in the video. And then the stripes kind of go down into the jamb there, about 1/4 to a 1/2 inch, something like that. And I just kind of put a piece of tape there to show, to kind of end the white, as we're painting it. So this is an original paint car here that I'm using as source material. And this car is original paint, original stripes from the factory. And then also online, there was a guy who put out a tape measure measuring his original paint car, and that's where I got all my dimensions to lay out the stripe. So again, I'm using the machinist ruler here to just mark off the dimensions where I have to put the fine line tape. And I'm speeding up this process here because I spent a couple of days laying these stripes out, and the dimensions are very confusing, and the stripes on the trunk lid in particular have different dimensions on each stripe, depending on where the Camaro emblem is and so on. But again, all that information is online if you need to look that up. And there are stencils for these, but I've chosen to do it myself, just because I think it's a little easier. And then on the curve up here in the back, I just I measure 5/8 of an inch down from the window, which is what the specs are in the assembly manual. And then I mark where the white and the blue is. And then, believe it or not, I just use a 1/4 to establish my inner circle of the pinstripe. So I just kind of establish the inner intersection there, and then I just use a quarter and I mark it, and then I wrap the fine line tape around that marking. It's pretty simple. It's pretty close to what the factory was, and it's really easy just to use a quarter and do it rather than stress yourself out about getting it absolutely the same as what the factory was, which is pretty close to a quarter. So, and you'll see at the end product, it turned out really nice. Just have to make sure that fine line tape is firmly sealed at the edge there, because you don't want any paint to bleed. There again, I'm just marking where to put the paper when we're ready to paint it. Then I just use a razor blade to cut it and then push it down into the jam. And again, the same set of pictures of an original paint car with the measurements, and these are the measurements that I went by. So I got a sewing tape, which is nice and soft, won't scratch the paint, and I just kind of tape it in place to establish my distances, and then I again follow those pictures that I found online of that original paint car, and I'm just doing it exactly to what the factory did. There are so many discrepancies online about the dimensions of these stripes that the only ones that I really truly trust are original paint cars with original stripes, so that's what I'm going by. And I've even heard that the stencils are slightly off as well. So, in my opinion, you can't argue what the factory did. And again, I'm using the cowl cover to establish the location of these stripes down the hood with that reveal on the cowl cover. Really makes it easy on the hood side. And again, I mark the hood down the hood with with the location marks so that I kind of line the tape up as I stretch it down the hood. Again, you want to make sure all the edges are nice and firmly sealed onto the car. And I'm using my iPad there to reference that original paint car. And in my case, it's kind of convenient not to have the windshield in, because I can get up in there and really get the measurement exact. You want to wipe all the residue off before you lay the tape down. And again, referring to my iPad to those original paint stripes, they're worth their weight in gold. So whoever posted those, thank you. It helps us all. The assembly manual the illustrations are really not that great. They show dimensions, but the drawings are really not that accurate, and they're not real clear as to what part of the stripe the dimension is taken at. It's very difficult to decipher that, and I think that's one of the reasons why there's so many discrepancies on the actual dimensions of these stripes, because the illustrations in the assembly manual were drawn in like isometric drawings, and the dimensions are just not clear as to exactly where they go. So again, that's why I'm using actual measurements of actual cars with original paint. It was very, very helpful in my case, because my car did not have the original stripes on it when I bought it, so I didn't have anything to go by. So here we've put the car in the paint booth once all the stripes are laid out, and now we're just taping everything up, getting it all ready to paint. And we just cover the whole car up with plastic, and then we cut out the areas where the stripes are going to go. This is actually the fun part of the job. I mean, laying the stripes out are not as easy as I'm making it look. It's very challenging. It's very confusing. You really have to pay attention to the dimensions. I mean, I must have laid these stripes out 4 or 5 times before I got them right. And I do have the advantage of doing all this at the body shop with the paint booth and everything. It made it so much easier than if I had to have done it at my shop. And again, as I mentioned in the previous videos, I am really trying to get the car out of the shop because their hours are very erratic right now with the lockdown, and their business has been affected and everything. So I just feel like I need to get the car out of the shop, out of the body shop here, and into my own shop, and then I can get back on the motorcycle videos as well. So my next video will be on some of the bikes that I'm working on as well. So here we are finishing up, getting everything taped off and ready for the paint. And once you do that, you have to kind of go back and scuff up those areas again to make sure all your handprints and fingerprints are off of the surface. And then we wipe them down with a thinner to get all the oils off and everything, and at this point they're ready to start to shoot. So here's Francisco getting ready to start the painting process. And I'm going to speed this up here in a second. I just wanted to kind of show the initial spray. And as specified by the assembly manual and many other sources, the stripes are painted with Dover white, which was a very common color around this time period. So here I'm speeding up the video a little bit to get it past the spraying process. took only a few minutes to spray on the paint, and then after we let it set for about a half hour or so, then we clear coated it. And then after that we will wet sand the whole car down, and then re-clear the hood and the trunk and wherever the stripes are, and then we'll wet sand the whole car down and buff it out, and then we'll be finished. So, and then after about 45 minutes or so, you want to remove all the plastic and the tape and so on before the paint is completely set up, because it's much safer to pull the fine line tape when the paint is still soft, so you don't pull up the paint with it. And that's what we're doing here. And again, the paint was very, very sticky, so we had to be really careful how we undid everything. And of course the paint got all over our hands, and not really the paint, but our hands were very sticky afterwards. So that's kind of when you want to pull the fine line tape off. And as you will see here in a minute, it just turned out perfect. Here I'm kind of showing a close-up of pulling the fine line tape off, and you can just see how great that stuff is. And that's it. Here's the finished product. And again, like I said before, on a couple of days we'll clear coat over these again, and then we will wet sand and buff out the whole car at that point. So this is going to pretty much do it for this particular video, and I thank you so much for watching. And again, as usual, please like, subscribe, and share, and stay tuned for upcoming videos on the motorcycles and on the car as well. So once I get the car back to my shop, then I'll be working on both the bikes and the car at the same time. And my next video on the car is going to be, I'm going to start putting the engine together. So I'm going to go through the entire step-by-step process of putting the engine back together, the original 302 for this car. So again, thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next time.